Naram chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 19. King Yayati achieves liberation. Text number 29. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Vasudevaya Vedhase Sarvabhuta Adhivasaya Sarvabhutadhivasaya Shantaya Brihate Namaha Shantaya Brihate Namaha Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Sarvabhutadhivasaya Shantaya Brihate Namaha. 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 Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances Tubhyam unto you, Bhagavate, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudevaya, Lord Vasudeva, Vedhase, the Creator of everything, Sarvabhuta Adhivasaya, present everywhere, within the heart of every living entity, and within the atom also, Shantaya, peaceful, as if completely inactive, Brihate, greatest of all, Namaha, I offer my respectful obeisances. This verse is a very special prayer to the Supreme Lord. It begins with Namaha, ends with Namaha. Namaha, Tubhyam, the Sandhi becomes Namastubhyam. And ending is Brihate Namaha. And it is a complete glorification of the Supreme Lord. Every word is just glorifying the Supreme Lord. This is a standard of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is exclusive glorification of the Supreme Lord. Nothing else is there in the Bhagavatam. Exclusive glorification of the Supreme Lord. That's why this is a very special literature. Very, very special literary. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. O Lord Vasudeva, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the creator of the entire cosmic manifestation. You live as the super soul in everyone's heart and are smaller than the smallest. Yet, you are greater than the greatest and are all pervading. You appear completely silent, having nothing to do, but this is due to your all-pervading nature and your fullness in all opulences. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please repeat this translation after me. O Lord Vasudeva, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the creator of the entire cosmic manifestation. You live as a super soul in everyone's heart and are smaller than the smallest. Yet you are greater than the greatest and are all pervading. You appear completely silent, having nothing to do, but this is due to your all-pervading nature and your fullness in all opulences. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. It's a very interesting purport. Hear the purport carefully. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Apparently it's just a prayer. So many prayers are there in the Bhagavatam, filled with prayers. But this prayer, see what Prabhupada says. How Devayani became self-realized by the grace of her great husband, Maharaj Yayati, is described here. This is a description of how Devayani became self-realized. There's no clue, no, for us to understand that this description of the Supreme Lord is actually a description of how Devayani became self-realized. What does Devayani become self-realized got to do with the description of Vasudeva, Supreme Lord? That is described in the next sentence by Srila Prabhupada. Describing such realization is another way of performing the bhakti process. First of all, there is a realization of a devotee. Who's offering these obeisances? Namaha, Tubhyam, Brihate, Namaha. It's a devotee. Who's the devotee? Who's the devotee? Devayani. Devayani is the devotee who has become self-realized. So the result of becoming self-realization is that she is offering this wonderful prayer to the Supreme Lord. So describing such realization, which Devayani is doing, is another way of performing the bhakti process. How did she become self-realized? By adopting the bhakti process. Now, earlier it was told, okay, let me read the purport and then we will discuss. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam. This is from the Bhagavatam 7th canto 5th chapter 23rd verse. The translation of this verse is: hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him, these 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. This is a translation of this verse, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So then Srila Prabhupada says, Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, are especially important. There are 9 processes of devotional service, but 2 are very important, especially important. By hearing from her husband about the greatness of Lord Vasudeva, Devayani certainly became convinced and surrendered herself unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Same thing is told in another way here. Her prayer is same as the prayer offered in the beginning by Vyasadeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Similar prayer she is offering in slightly different words. What is that? Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is knowledge. This is knowledge. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Surrender to Vasudeva is the result of hearing about him for many, many births. As soon as one surrenders unto Vasudeva, one is immediately liberated. Because of her association with her great husband, Maharajayati, Devayani became purified, adopted the means of Bhakti Yoga, and thus became liberated. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 19th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled King Yayati Achieves Liberation. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Earlier there was a description that Maharaj Yati completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, and he was freed from all contamination of the material modes of nature. Because of his self-realization, he was able to fix his mind upon the transcendence, Vasudeva, or Brahman, and thus he ultimately achieved the position of an associate of the Lord. Now, King Yayati definitely had a very nice realization, because he became disgusted trying to enjoy materially, and he completely gave up, and he also became self-realized. And as a result of self-realization, he completely surrendered unto the Supreme Lord Vasudeva, and he became liberated immediately. Because here it says, as soon as one surrenders unto Vasudeva, one is liberated immediately. One is liberated immediately. Now what about Devayani? Devayani was just a faithful, chaste wife. So she was just serving her husband. That's all she was doing. She was not separately practicing any spiritual process. But then, Srila Prabhupada says, by hearing from her husband about the greatness of Lord Vasudeva, Devayani certainly became convinced and surrendered herself unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedase. So, she adopted the process of Bhakti Yoga after hearing from her husband about the greatness of the Supreme Lord. So, this hearing process, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, is stressed in the Bhagavatam. Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishnaha Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. Simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, simply by hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord, simply by hearing the holy name, the details of the Lord's form, qualities, paraphernalia, his associates, his abode, his activities, one becomes immediately purified. One becomes purified. And such purification, if it continues, then when one is fully purified, then one is immediately liberated. By complete purification, one is immediately liberated. And on the liberated platform, one who has heard the glories of the Supreme Lord completely surrenders to the Supreme Lord and simply engages in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. All this happens without any separate endeavor for somebody who adopts the process of Bhakti Yoga. So Devayani's realization is summarized in just one verse. This is that verse. What is it? Her prayer to the Supreme Lord, her glorification of the Lord. Shravanam Kirtanam. If somebody hears nicely, the result is they glorify. Kirtanam is the result of Shravanam. Kirtanam follows Shravanam. So what is her realization? What is the glorification she is offering? Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedase. O Lord Vasudeva. She is addressing the Lord as Vasudeva. And here Lord Vasudeva is glorified as, first of all, you are Bhagavan. So Bhagavate means unto you who are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. And Bhagavan, Srila Prabhupada explains, is full in all opulences. Bhagavan. The definition of Bhagavan given in the Shastra, Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasasriyaha Jnana vairagyayoshchaiva shannam bhaga itingana. This is a definition given by Parashara Muni, one of the greatest authorities in the knowledge of the absolute truth. So he says, the supreme absolute truth is called Bhagavan because he is the supreme person full of six opulences. Aishwaryasya samagrasya, the sum total of all Aishwarya, all wealth. Viryasya, not only wealth but also strength or power. Yashasaha, all fame. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasa shriyaha, all beauty. Jnana, all knowledge. Vairagya, all renunciation. These six opulences are the principal opulences of the Supreme Personality of God. He is complete in all opulences, but these are the six primary opulences because of which one is attractive. What makes somebody attractive? It is these opulences. So living entities being part and parcel of Krishna, they possess these opulences to very, very small degree because they're a very tiny part of Krishna. So therefore living entities are attractive. But Krishna is supremely attractive because he has all these opulences unlimitedly. Samagrasya, it is sum total of all opulences. So that Supreme Lord is being glorified as, you are Lord Vasudeva, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of six opulences, Bhagavate. You are the creator of the entire cosmic manifestation. Vedhase. Vedhase. You are the creator of everything in existence. So generally people understand by studying the scriptures, Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the maintainer, Shiva is the destroyer. But this understanding is a incomplete understanding. Why? Because even though Brahma does some work in terms of the creation and Shiva does some work in terms of destruction, ultimately both Brahma and Shiva are empowered by the Supreme Lord to engage themselves in some service to the Lord. It is the Lord's mercy that He does everything. But because the living entities are also active spirit souls, so in order that they don't engage in some nonsense, He is very merciful in engaging them in something meaningful. And what can be the meaningful engagement for any living being, for anybody else other than the Lord? Can only be some service to the Lord. And since the Lord is always engaged in different activities, so one of the activities is creation of this entire cosmic manifestation, material cosmic manifestation. So that creation He Himself does begin that, and afterwards He engages so many other devotees. He engages them. So first of all He engages Brahma. Then Brahma creates the Prajapatis. Then He engages the Prajapatis. And the Prajapatis create some population in different species. Then the living entities themselves are engaged by the Lord in further procreation, increasing the population, populating the whole universe. So it is the Lord's mercy that He engages the living beings in some meaningful activity. So Brahma and Shiva are not independent creators, creator and destroyer. They are engaged, empowered, and enabled by the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva. So therefore, Vasudeva is the creator, Vasudeva is the destroyer, Vasudeva is the maintainer, Vasudeva is Vasudeva Sarvamiti. He is everything. He is the doer of everything. He is the creator of everything. He is the maintainer of everything. He is the fulfiller of everyone's desires. He is the provider for everyone. Everything is owned by Him. So this understanding of God, of the Absolute Truth, is specifically given in the confidential parts of the Vedic literature. Otherwise, the Vedic literature contains certainly so many facts about the Absolute Truth or God. But to put it all together, if you hear so many different places, different facts, different details about who is God or what is the truth, to put them all together and get a comprehensive understanding, that is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is expressed in the beginning of the Bhagavatam itself. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Satyam Param Dhimahi. So Srila Prabhupada, while explaining this verse, he says, the conception of God and the conception of the Absolute Truth are not on the same level. The conception of God indicates a controller, and certainly God is the supreme controller. But when God is described as a controller, He is not the only controller. In our experience, there are so many controllers. Of course, different controllers have different degree of controlling power. So it seems like there are different controllers, and there are one controller is greater than another controller, and that greater controller has got somebody above him who's even greater. So like that you go on searching for somebody greater, and then you come to the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva or Vishnu, who is the greatest controller. This greatest may also mean that there is some kind of competition. Isn't it in the material world? In this Olympic, Olympics that are held every 4 years or something? Every 4 years, okay. So, in previous Olympic competition or whatever, somebody was the greatest weightlifter, greatest runner. Now, next Olympic, maybe the same person can again win the race, running race or weightlifting. But may also be replaced by somebody else. May also be replaced. So there seems to be always competition in this material world. So somebody may think Vishnu has won the competition of trying to be the controller, and therefore because he has won the competition, he is the greatest. Is it like that? That Vishnu is also competing with Brahma, Shiva, and so many 33 crore devatas? No. That is explained in the Bhagavatam. That Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Satyam Param Dhimahi. I meditate upon Vasudeva, who is Bhagavan, because he is the supreme absolute truth. Absolute truth means that truth which is not relative. Relative truth is not truth in all phases of time, is not truth under all circumstances, is not truth which is truth always, eternally the truth. No, that is relative truth. So material world we have experience with our limited senses and limited mind only of relative truth. Whereas beyond relative truth is absolute truth. Krishna, Vasudeva, he is truth eternally. He is truth in all phases of time. That means when he is described as the greatest, he is eternally the greatest. He is eternally the greatest. He is eternally the truth. So that eternal truth is described as Satyam Param, absolute truth. Param is not used just in the sense of the supreme, but Param is also used in the sense of absolute. Absolute means there is no relativity. So he has no competition. Why he has no competition? Why he has no competitor? Because Bhagavan, he is the absolute owner of everything. Everything in existence. He is the absolute owner. Therefore, whatever we have or we possess or we desire to possess, everything ultimately belongs to him. Therefore, in the Ishopanishad is described, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Whatever is there in this entire jagat, entire creation, everything belongs to Ishavasya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, the Absolute Truth. Therefore, the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva, Vishnu, Krishna, he has no competitor. He is not in a position which is changeable. He has no beginning, Anadi. He has no end, Ananta, unending, beginningless. So these attributes apply only to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedase Sarvabhuta Adhivasaya. Sarvabhuta, that he is present in all living entities' heart as super soul. Sarvabhuta Adhivasaya. Heart of every living entity and also within every atom. Also within every atom. Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham. He has entered into every universe. He has also entered into every material atom. He has entered into everybody's heart. Now, because he has entered into every atom, we can say he is smaller than the smallest. But atom, there are two kinds of atom. Material atom and spiritual atom. Material atom is the smallest material particle. And spiritual atom is the tiny spirit soul. Tiny spirit soul. 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair point in size. This is the size of the atom, the size of the individual soul. So that soul, so small, into heart of that soul, Paramatma enters. Krishna enters as Paramatma. So therefore, smaller than the smallest. This is explained by Prabhupada in that Bhagavad Gita 8.9 purport. What is that verse? 9th verse. 8th chapter, 9th verse. Kavim Puranam Manushasitaram Anoraniyamsam. This is the description. Anoraniyamsam, smaller than the smallest. So Prabhupada says, how is the Supreme Lord smaller than the smallest in this material world? Because he has entered into the heart of that very, 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 very tiny living entity. Therefore, he is smaller than the smallest. But he is also greater than the greatest. Brihate. Because he has expanded himself in the universal form. He pervades the entire universe. So in our experience in this material creation, the smallest is the material atom or the living entity, the spiritual particle. Both he has entered as Paramatma. And as Vishwatma, he has entered into this universe and has spread himself everywhere. He has expanded himself throughout the universe. And that's what he showed to Arjuna, universal form. He displayed to Arjuna. In the Bhagavad Gita description is there. So he is greater than the greatest, Brihate, and Shantaya. He is completely silent. Shantaya. Not because he is unable to do anything, as if he is doing nothing. He is silently sitting. Not because he is unable to do anything, because he has nothing to do. Why has he nothing to do? Because he is full in all opulences. You see, the living entities, they are busy acquiring so many things. I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this, I don't have that. Even the big rich people, you see, they are busy. They want to increase their wealth, they want to increase their possession, they want to increase their power, they want to increase their fame, they want to increase their influence. But what is there for the Supreme Lord to increase? Nothing. So therefore, Shantaya. So all these glorification of the Supreme Lord leads to realization of the greatness of the Supreme Lord, by which one simply surrenders to the Lord and becomes immediately fully liberated. I'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.